Now some historical perspective, and to Ray Suarez.
We get that longer view from NewsHour regulars, presidential historian Michael Beschloss and journalist and author Haynes Johnson. Joining them tonight are presidential biographer and historian Richard Norton Smith and Roger Wilkins, professor of history at George Mason University. Well, Michael, granted we are still using their instruction manual to the United States. We call it the Constitution, but what would the founders have made of all this?
I think the founders, oddly enough, and it's almost amazing to think about, probably would have liked what they've seen today. You know, in the year 2000, Americans, we love things to be decided instantly. We want exit polls. We want to know on election night who's going to be president. And that was the opposite of what the founders really intended. They wanted the system to be messy. They wanted it to be almost an obstacle course on a big national decision like this, because they felt that if you had even a presidential elections decided in this very messy, zigzag way we've seen over the last few weeks, it draws strengths from all areas of the process. All three branches of government, from local, state, and federal. In certain ways, all areas of the country, they'd be happy about that. They'd also like the fact that what we've seen in the last month really mirrors the body politic. We Americans are divided by party, almost down the middle. You see it in Congress, you see it in the Electoral College, you see it excruciatingly in the state of Florida. And the other thing I think the founders would love, as astounding as it is for us to think about, because it's so maddening for us not to have a decision tonight, they love the fact that there is enormous conflict here, because they felt that if you had an important national decision, the best decision comes out of conflict when people are engaged, and it's also the best safeguard against what they worried about most of all, which is dictatorship decisions handed down from Washington.
Richard Norton Smith, what do you make of your colleagues' analysis?
Well, I would remind Michael, however, that the founders, after all, wrote a constitution in secret. They locked the doors to Independence Hall in 1787, kept out the equivalent of Chris Matthews and his ilk.
And do you have a view on whether that was a good idea, Richard?
I think that was an excellent idea. I wish we could turn the clock back, Michael. It's fascinating what is going on. You know, every time we think we get out of the historical maze, particularly 1876, I'm sure people are sick of hearing about Rutherford B. Hayes, but, you know, we find ourselves back in the cul-de-sac. Rutherford Hayes won Florida by 94 votes. His victory was certified by a Republican Secretary of State. The Florida State Supreme Court overturned that victory and certified a Democratic victory. Two sets of electors, two sets of returns were sent to Washington. The Republican candidate Hayes suggested, let the Supreme Court pick a winner. The Democrats said, no, let Congress pick a winner. They controlled one house of Congress. In the end, this now famous Electoral Commission was put together, and it ruled 8-7, party line vote for Hayes, the Republican. The action today increases, I think, considerably the odds that we could, in fact, be back again in that historical maze. There could be two sets of Florida votes, and it could wind up in the House of Representatives.
Roger Wilkins?
Oh, I think this is wonderful. I think this is absolutely wonderful. The founders could not have contemplated 24-hour news cycles and people urging the American people to be tired of it already. Well, I have a 17-year-old daughter who's a senior in high school, and she's watching this avidly, and she's getting a real lesson that even in a brutal power struggle, the system really kind of works. It creaks, it cranks, it's pushed at the sides, but for a change, our litigiousness as a society comes in handy, because we do, as a people, ultimately believe in the rule of law, and we do believe in procedures and process. And I think that any young people who are paying attention are getting a terrific lesson in how strong and resilient their society is. After all, we know that the worst things that have been hurled around here so far are court-bashing words that drew a rebuke from Justice Ginsburg when they got up there the last time. But none of us believe that we're going to have mobs in the streets or that there are going to be guns. We all are sure that this is going to end peacefully. Everybody's not going to be happy, but we think our system's going to work. I think that's terrific.
Well, Haynes, after the civics lesson is over, is there still enough swirling wind in the system to kind of push things along to change. You know, Richard was just mentioning the Rutherford B. Hayes election. That brought a lot of new law online in the years after that. Could we see the same thing happening this time?
Oh, sure, but I want to say, I thought what Michael and Roger just said was wonderful, because this really has been an example of how our system works, and it's messy, it's untidy, it's the clash of ideas. It goes against everything we're supposed to be in the country in this media age, instantaneous decisions. We want to know instantly what happens, and the fact is that's not the way life works, and in this case, we don't know what the ending's going to be, and it could be very messier yet to come. I was trying to think after watching the decision today, where would you draw from history some great quote that would tell you sort of appropriately to the moment, you know, Churchill about democracy and the world system and accept all others, and or the terrible ifs of history and so forth. The best one, I think, is our great philosopher of our times, Yogi Berra. And I saw Letterman the other night saying, you know, everybody, the whole country has built into the conventional wisdom, now it's over, it's finally. And Letterman was saying, and quoting Yogi Berra, said, you know, it ain't over till it's over. Letterman said, it's over. Well, everybody, the whole country thought, until just a little bit ago, it was over. All the concession speeches being raised, and the fact is, it's not over. We don't know how it's going to come out. This could be very, very damaging down the road, or it could be exhilarating. So I don't feel dismay, and the country's more patient than the politicians, and certainly the conventional wisdom people.
Well, with the three justices who dissented from the action of the other four, we think this ruling is inconsistent with Florida law, with federal law, and with the United States Constitution. Therefore, we have no alternative other than to appeal once again to the Supreme Court of the United States for relief. We have already put in motion the process to do that.
This is a Nightline Friday night special.
The decision, when it came, caught just about everybody by surprise.
By a vote of 4-3, the majority of the court has reversed the decision of
And dramatically changed the complexion of what appears to be this never-ending election.
shall immediately begin a manual recount.
Instead of being over, there is more counting to be done.
Hanging chads, swinging chads, dimpled chads. We're going to have to, it was interesting when it was somewhere else. Now that it's up here in North Florida, we're going to have to take a look at it.
And the Vice President has received a reprieve, and perhaps much more.
This decision is not just a victory for Al Gore and his millions of supporters.
It is sad for Florida, it is sad for the nation, and it is sad for our democracy.
Tonight, the counting resumes.